McFarlane.
We'll get odds.
We'll clean up.
Exactly.
Not interested. Me neither.
Hey, aw.
MASH had 11 seasons, 256 episodes, and the most watched finale in television history. What I bet you didn't know was it was also a censor's nightmare, and it generated thousands of angry letters from outraged viewers. Let's take a look at the most loved and controversial show from the 1970s. Number 1. The anti-war comedy that launched during wartime. September the 7th of 1972. As the Vietnam War raged on, CBS premiered what they called a comedy about the Korean War. But everyone knew what MASH was really about. Based on Richard Hooker's novel and Robert Altman's controversial 1970 film, MASH followed the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital during the Korean War. On the surface, it was doctors and nurses making jokes during wartime. But underneath lay a scathing indictment of American military involvement overseas, disguised as a sitcom about a conflict that ended 20 years earlier. The show's creators, Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds, were walking an incredibly dangerous tightrope. They were airing during prime time, while American soldiers were still dying in Vietnam. The Korean War setting provided the perfect cover for their anti-war message. MASH invented what we now call the dramedy, mixing genuine laughs with real trauma in ways television had never attempted. But that innovation came with a steep price. The show constantly battled network executives, military officials, and viewers who felt that comedy should stay comedy and that television shouldn't challenge audiences quite so directly. Number 2. The Death That Shocked America. March the 18th of 1975. The Season 3 finale. Millions of viewers tuned in expecting a typical farewell episode for a departing character. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, played by McLean Stevenson, had received his discharge papers. After 3 seasons of lovable incompetence, Henry was finally going home to Bloomington, Illinois. The episode played exactly as viewers expected for 28 minutes. There were parties, heartfelt speeches, and everyone was genuinely happy for their bumbling but beloved commanding officer. Then came the final 90 seconds that changed television forever. Gary Berghoff, playing Radar O'Reilly, stumbles into the operating room visibly shaken. Finally, barely able to get the words out, he delivers the devastating news. I have a message. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. It spun in. There were no survivors. The camera slowly pans across the faces of the surgical team. Hawkeye and Trapper keep operating. Margaret and Frank look stunned. The only sound is the beeping of medical equipment and the audience's collective gasp. This wasn't a character moving to another city. This was death, sudden, random, meaningless, and absolutely devastating. And America was not ready for it. The backlash was immediate and explosive. Over 1,000 letters flooded CBS and 20th Century Fox within days. Viewers called it cruel, unnecessary, and completely inappropriate for a comedy show. Hey everyone, in the comments below, please tell us about your favorite MASH episode and who is your favorite character. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Number 3. The episode Too Scandalous to Air. But Abyssinia Henry wasn't MASH's first brush with controversy. There's an entire episode that never got made because CBS deemed it too scandalous for American television. The script was called Hawkeye on the Double, and it was apparently so spicy that network executives killed it before production even began. So, what was this allegedly R-rated storyline? Brace yourself. Hawkeye Pierce dating 2 nurses at the same time. CBS executives took one look at this dalliance and said, absolutely not. They felt the storyline was too morally questionable for family television. Keep in mind, this is the same network that was perfectly comfortable showing graphic surgery footage in blood-soaked operating rooms. But a love triangle? That crossed the line. Apparently, watching people get shot was fine. But watching someone trying to remember which nurse he had a dinner date with was considered morally corrupting. Number 4. The Censorship Wars. The banned episode was just the beginning of MASH's ongoing war with network censors. Behind the scenes, the show's writers were locked in a constant battle with CBS's Standards and Practices Department. In one particularly absurd example, CBS refused to let Radar say he was a virgin in an episode where he was referring to his lack of combat experience. The network censors considered the word too sexually suggestive, even though the context was clearly about military service. Apparently, the censors had dirtier minds than the writers. Writer Larry Gelbart devised perfect revenge. In a later episode, he deliberately had a character mention being from the Virgin Islands, just to test whether the censors would catch the forbidden word in a different context. They didn't. Score 1 for geography over censorship. The MASH writing team developed sophisticated strategies to outsmart the censors. They would deliberately include extra curse words like damn and hell in their scripts, knowing CBS would demand cuts, but might allow a few to remain. It was a numbers game. Ask for 10 dams, expect to keep 2. Basically, they were playing profanity poker with network executives. But MASH got their ultimate revenge against the censors in the sneakiest way possible, and it took over 20 years for anyone to notice. Season 2, Episode 16, The Trial of Henry Blake. Trapper holds up a handwritten note for Klinger to read. For decades, viewers couldn't make out what the note said. But when MASH was released on DVD, eagle-eyed fans finally decoded the message. The note read, "Give the guard an effing gallon of phenobarbital," but the word was actually spelled out. MASH had successfully snuck an F-bomb past network censors for over 20 years. It was the perfect crime against standards and practices, and probably the longest con in television history. Number 5. Military bans and international controversy. The censorship battles weren't limited to network television. Before the TV series even existed, the U.S. military had declared war on MASH. March of 1970. The Army and Air Force banned Robert Altman's original MASH film from all military installations worldwide. Their reasoning was that the film reflected unfavorably on the military and could undermine confidence in medical treatment soldiers would receive in combat. The military's concerns were entirely unfounded. MASH portrayed military leadership as incompetent and military regulations as absurd. Instead of polished recruitment commercials, MASH showed officers who cared more about protocol than people. South Korea initially banned the series entirely for its portrayal of Koreans as poor and backward. The show's Korean characters were often one-dimensional, and many weren't even played by Korean actors. Number 6. More controversial episodes. Abyssinia Henry wasn't the only MASH episode that pushed boundaries beyond what audiences expected. The Bus featured soldiers deliberately exposing themselves to freezing weather, hoping to make themselves sick enough to be sent home from combat. CBS executives deemed the storyline too unpatriotic and demanded significant changes, even though the tactic was documented as actually being used during the Korean War. Dreams took the series in an entirely different direction, exploring the psychological trauma of the 4077th staff through surreal nightmare sequences that felt more like horror than comedy. Some fans felt it crossed the line from dramedy into genuinely disturbing territory, questioning whether MASH was still the show they had fallen in love with. Number 7. The Legacy of Controversy. So, what happened to MASH after all this controversy? Did the angry letters, network battles, and international incidents destroy the show's reputation? Quite the opposite. Abyssinia Henry is now universally considered one of the greatest episodes in television history. TV Guide ranked it number 20 on their 100 greatest episodes of all time in 1997. TV Land included it in their top 100 most unexpected moments in TV history 15 years later. What once scandalized audiences is now required viewing for understanding how television evolved. The show that once shocked America with Henry Blake's sudden death went on to deliver television's most watched finale, 125 million viewers tuning in to say goodbye to the 4077th. That record still stands today, and likely always will in our fragmented media landscape. To put that into perspective, that's more people than voted in the 2020 presidential election, all watching the same TV show at the same time. More importantly, MASH proved that audiences were far hungrier for complex, challenging content than network executives had ever realized. It paved the way for many future television shows. The show proved that viewers were ready for television that treated them like adults, especially when those adults were watching with their families. Looking back nearly 50 years later, it's hard to imagine being genuinely shocked by Henry Blake's death or scandalized by a character dating two people simultaneously. But in the 1970s, these moments represented seismic shifts in what television could be and do. MASH taught an entire industry that the best television doesn't just entertain. It provokes, challenges, and sometimes even outrages. It showed that audiences will stick with shows that respect their intelligence, even when those shows make them uncomfortable. Sometimes, the most controversial thing you can do is simply tell the truth about human nature, about war, about life's fundamental unfairness. And sometimes, that's exactly what audiences need, even when they don't realize it. So, what did you think of these real MASH controversies? Were you shocked by any of these documented behind-the-scenes battles? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into television history that shaped the medium we love today, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Next week, we're exploring another television earthquake, the Dallas episode that literally changed primetime drama forever. Until then, remember, the best stories are the ones that dare to tell uncomfortable truths.